Hi.
Hello. How are you, Michelle?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Oh, good to be alive. Thanks for asking. Thank you for accepting my invitation. I appreciate you.
Oh, I'm happy to be here.
Ah, man, I'm happy that you're here. I tell you what, Michelle, and I don't know if you've been exposed to it, but sometimes you see somebody that's so good at something that you just look at them and you get up and you just walk off. Or you want to throw something at them, and it's not in a disrespectful way, but you just want to throw it and run off.
Yeah,
So when I see
I
you,
know that.
listen, when I see you twirl that staff and do the things that you do, many a times I wanted to throw something at my screen because it's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I
You're
appreciate that.
welcome.
I really like
You're
your
welcome.
suit, by the way.
Well, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. Hey,
I appreciate that you got dressed up.
absolutely, got to do it. Listen. I'm just saying, presentation is everything, right?
Yeah.
Now, so in terms of martial arts, how old were you when you first started your training, and what style was that you started with?
All right. Well, it's actually a more complicated question than people might suspect.
Okay.
I actually started when I was 5 years old as a baton twirler.
Really?
And
Okay.
yeah, not a majorette. I didn't march in parades or do anything of that. Baton twirling, the sport, is a lot more akin to rhythmic gymnastics,
Okay.
sort of presented in the same way that figure skating might be.
Sure.
And it was a very serious endeavor for me right from the start. By the time I was 9 years old, I was going to nationals. I qualified for my first world championships when I was 11. And I competed at the world championships every year until I retired when I was 19. So I went 8 times, won all the medals, did the things, won nationals, won worlds, did all that. And part of my training, we trained 7 days a week, 40 hours a week. That wouldn't fly these days, but it was the 90s. Dance was a huge part of my training, and so was gymnastics. So I was also competing full time in dance and all that. And then I moved out to Vancouver to start working professionally, and I thought I was going to be a professional dancer, and did that for a few years, and then was like, this isn't quite it. And then I got into circus arts, and I performed with a professional circus company for almost 10 years that sort of overlapped with stunts. And then stunts came around when I was around 24, 25. And then that's when I started learning martial arts. I started with Muay Thai, and very quickly after that started learning Filipino martial arts, JKD, and then it's just progressed since then. So technically I've only been doing martial arts for about 14 years, but I've been training for 33 years now. And what I found with martial arts when I started learning it, because I already had quite a bit of athletic ability and body awareness, that martial arts is very complementary to dance. It's like two sides of the same coin. It's movement. The body's going to move in specific ways. So I was able to pick it up and progress really, really quickly to quite a high level, just because I had such a deep movement background before that. And then weapons and baton obviously translate very well to each other. I find that I put something in my hand and I'm just the whole world expands for me, because I know exactly what to do when there's something in my hand. And so it's sort of an indirect route to get to where I'm at. A lot of people are surprised by the baton part of it, but
I am.
Here I am.
Number me amongst them. Wow. I mean, when you started with the baton twirling, did you have any idea that it would develop and you would develop and into the plethora of talent that you have grown into? I mean, wow.
No, I can't say that I knew, or how could you comprehend when you're a kid, really? And I didn't know. I say this a lot. I didn't know that being a stunt performer was even an option until I was pretty much on my way into the industry and I started meeting stunt people. I'm like, oh, I guess, that would be an ideal career path for me that sort of encapsulates everything that I can do all in one package. And but I did know when I was a kid, I didn't really fall into that category of traditional, what a baton twirler or even a dancer traditionally looked like. I always had a little bit of fire. I really enjoyed the creative part of it. I'm a very creative person, but there was just aspects about it that I was unhappy with. And so I was constantly pushing against what was traditionally acceptable. And I think that was my indication that there's something more. And the reason I moved into a professional career, because a lot of people just retire, like they finish high school and they retire from their sport or whatever they're doing, and they move on with their life. But I was like, there's something more to this. I didn't take all this time to learn this thing if I'm not going to use it, because I felt, even then I felt like my training was incomplete, and I was just sort of searching for something. And I think that's why I went to dance and then to circus and then stunts, and then I'm always searching and expanding, because I don't follow a traditional route. I've never been that person. And so I think it was that just like, there's something else, there's something more. What more can I do with this? And just sort of blazing that trail for myself. And it's been quite lonely at times, because there's nobody else doing it, and or people don't understand what it's all about. And but I just, like, even to this day, I'm like, nah, more, like, what else can I do? What else can I try? And it will continue to lead me wherever it's going to lead me. Who knows? Maybe 30 years from now, I'll be doing something else that's crazy, and we'll have the same conversation and be like, did you know? No.
Well, listen, let me see. I think 3 things. Thing number 1, what kind of dancing did you do? Thing number 2, you were saying that it gets lonely. Do you find that the people that support you and love what you do and are in awe of your talents that you share with us, despite the loneliness, do you see that support has a tendency to kind of encourage and fuel you despite the loneliness sometimes? Well, 2 things then.
Okay. Well, in terms of dance, I was classically trained. I grew up doing ballet, jazz, musical theater, lyrical, point, tap in the later years. I had like all of group routines, and then I had like a jazz solo, a lyrical solo, and like a jazz group. And so in Baton, we have about 12 routines that we have to do. So I was always constantly choreographing and performing choreography from a young age. I think at the peak of it, I would have had like 25 different routines that I was remembering all simultaneously. I like to say I have a really big hard drive for choreography. Like, I can just take in choreography and remember it. Like, I remember routines from when I was 7. And like, I don't know why that's what my brain does, but yeah. So I would say I was a very technical dancer, and that maybe was a little bit more challenging when I moved out to a professional space where improvisation and freestyling is a thing, because I never grew up with the permission to freestyle and improv. So that was a whole thing. What was your second question? Oh, the loneliness.
Yes,
the loneliness.
And the encouragement. Do you draw encouragement from? Does that offset the loneliness that so many people admire and respect what you do and love what you do?
Yeah, I would say it goes in waves. It really actually correlates with my own mental health. I am a notoriously independent person. Whether that's a trauma response or just my natural personality is a whole thing. But I do tend to gravitate towards, like, a lot of my friends and peers are people who were also very involved in their sport when they were a kid and have been doing it since they were quite young and got to a really high level. Those tend to be the people that I surround myself with, because they're people that have some sort of understanding of the pressure and just the constant commitment and dedication and sacrifice to building up to something. And so I'm really grateful for that. And I think I do that subconsciously, but I do feel the pressure of being the only one in the world on the path that I'm on. And so a lot of times when I've asked for advice or contemplated moving in a certain direction, I have to do so from my own discipline and courage and just tenacity, because there's nobody doing what I do, and there's nobody to follow. There's no example that I can be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna channel that person and go that direction. I'm literally like in the jungle by myself, making the path so that people can follow me. And then I do feel that pressure from time to time, but also I wouldn't have it any other way. So like I said, it comes and goes. There's days where I'm just like, oh, I'm so tired and Why, like, I just want somebody to help me. Like, isn't there people that understand what I'm doing? But then at the other time, I'm like, nah, like, I'm the boss. I'm out here. I'm going to make this work for myself.
Okay.
Or I'm just going to try my best. That's all I can do. And like I said, I don't like following a traditional route. That's not the essence of who I am. And that's just the responsibility that I take on in creating something out of nothing and being that person that's bringing something into reality. And yeah, like, it's fun sometimes, but it's also, it's exhausting at other times.
Sure. I think the loneliness is something that comes with creatives as a whole, because like you said, unless it's someone that's doing exactly what it is that you're doing, creatives can all connect and relate to one another. But when it's something so specialized, then it does take on a different, sect of loneliness. What do you do to offset that? Like I know you love what you do. You wouldn't do it if you didn't. But like you said, there's a certain regard of pressure that comes with that. How do you get that relaxation in? How do you break off and calm your mind? Or, what is your avenue that you take for that?
I do a lot of meditation. And I used to journal quite a bit. I've since not been doing that. I think it goes in seasons. Like, sometimes meditation is it. Sometimes it's journaling. Sometimes it's going for walks. That has been a battle of mine, is separating myself from my work. That is sort of my ongoing battle of my life, because I've always been so focused in it. And it wasn't until I like really hit rock bottom and really hit some deep burnout that I was like, okay, I say that I'm creating the separation, but in practice, I may not be doing it fully. So now we really got to be able to do that, or I'm not going to survive. And so meditation is huge. But you know what I've started doing is I've really started focusing on the things that really light me up and bring me joy, like going to concerts, for example, going to shows, actively calling my friends. And this is a thing that I do, being this like independent introvert, which you don't see out in the world, because I'm a performer. Like, I'm able to turn on when I need to, but my natural base is to be quite quiet and alone. And so in the past, I haven't reached out to friends to go do activities. And so then I either do them by myself or I don't. Like, I've traveled all over the world by myself.
Right.
And now it's like actively asking my friends and people in my life, be like, hey, do you want to go do this thing with me? Or what are you doing? Let's go for breakfast. Brunch is always a great idea. Going for coffee is always fun. And it's just little things like that where I'm actively just closing my computer, putting my phone down, walking away and doing something else. That makes a huge difference. But those little things like going to shows, traveling, going on road trips, those things are the things that really light me up. And I'm in a space now in my life where I've dedicated a large portion of my life to my career. Now it's time to shift and offer that time and energy and effort into myself. So reinvesting in myself. And it's just, it makes a world of difference. But I do, like, before I'm going to perform or I'm on set, or even before I even teach classes, I take some time to just like calm down, let's breathe, focus on my body, and just get out of my head, because my head's always like all the time. So yeah, the meditation is key for me. It's something I do almost daily these days.
Okay. I love the fact initially you were talking about as it relates to you don't know what you may do in the future and how you're always kind of looking beyond. I love the fact that you apply that towards also bettering yourself, like you working on your meditation, and like you said, reaching out to people that are close to you. I love the fact that you made that transferable, because oftentimes a person can have an amazing amount of discipline when it comes to one thing and apply it towards that thing, but the other areas, it's not always the easiest, and I know I'm guilty of it as well, but it's not always the easiest to apply that same self-discipline that a person can utilize for educating themselves as opposed to relaxing themselves. So congratulations to you for that.
Thank you.
And also, you're welcome. Thank you also for sharing that vulnerability, because it's like, and I've said it a couple dozen times at least, people see talented individuals like yourself and they say, oh, wow, Michelle, and what it is that you do. But Michelle is a human being. She has emotions, she gets tired, she gets hungry, whatever. And I believe that when talented individuals like yourself share these vulnerabilities, it shows others that they're not alone with their vulnerabilities, and you made the decision to, despite your vulnerability, still seek out greatness, and others can too. So I really appreciate when people share that. It's a good thing. As it relates back to what you were talking about from the realm of martial arts, how many different martial arts have you trained in total, if you can remember, and what would you say are the ones that you actively practice now?
I started with Muay Thai, got into Filipino martial arts, JKD. I've done some jiu-jitsu, done a little bit of Taekwondo, some Silat, Krav Maga, just regular boxing, judo. Gosh, I'm sure there's more. I really, I still enjoy Muay Thai. I like how powerful I feel when I'm doing it. But the one that really was the easiest for me to pick up that I really resonated with was FMA, the Filipino martial arts, and JKD. They sort of mix. And it was starting with like Eskrima and Kali, where I'm like, oh, I know how to use this stick. I get this. I get the pattern. My very first Kali class, it was a double stick class. And like when I have sticks in my hands, they're moving and I'm not thinking. It's just what happens. And I think the instructor, it was my very first class. I've never done any FMA before. The instructor saw the flipping, was like, oh, you must be an experienced practitioner, and then chose me to demonstrate like heaven 6 and earth 6 and like heaven and earth with him. And I had never done it. And I was just like, like demonstrating it in front of this class of like other martial artists and other like stunt people. And it was just like, you have to learn this right now. And luckily I had the background to be able to just be like, well, okay, that's what we're doing. And I never forgot it after that. It was terrifying. I'm
sure. Jeez.
Yeah. And even like I've taught Heaven 6, and it's a pattern that's hard to put in your body, but at least I had some relevant skills, or I'd have been like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Sure. Wow.
But yeah.
I mean, would you say, I think it's safe to say that you have an acclamation for martial arts, for physical things, the way that it comes to you.
I think so. And I credit that a lot to my baton training. I also credit it a lot to, I was born left-handed, and when I started baton, the first 2 years, I actually wasn't very good at it because we were doing everything in our right hand, but then something clicked for me around like 7 or 8, and I never had an issue picking up movement after that. And I think it's because my brain was wired for being left-handed, and I had to adapt. So now I don't have a dominant hand. And I think that's a big part of it, because I'm able to reverse things really easily. And often when I'm training, like you go into these classes and they only do one hand, and I'm like, no, we do both hands. And I know that might be a faux pas, but you have 2 hands. If you are blessed with 2 hands and you have 2 working hands, you should use those hands.
Agreed.
Yeah. If you don't have 2 hands, that's a whole different story, and you do what you got. And yeah, but I think it's something around that. But I think my baton training, because it's such a difficult sport that involves so much dexterity and coordination and spatial awareness, because you're spinning a metal stick around your face, and you do get hit with it sometimes, so you learn very quickly. And I think it's that combined with the dance training, so this like really cerebral technical skill with the ability to move my body in all planes of motion. I think that really contributed to me being able to pick up any type of movement. And that's one of the self-beliefs that I keep about myself that I'm very grateful for, is I can learn anything. It doesn't matter whether I want to master other things, is a whole different story, but I can learn to do anything and adapt and move my body in that way. And it's served me well in my career, because that's what being a stunt performer is learning to adapt and take on new skills and constantly be moving in different ways that are uncomfortable sometimes.
For sure. Would you say that because you had such a strong emphasis on baton twirling when you were younger, that that's what made you want to do things as far as the staff is concerned, that you do now in terms of the classes and that?
Yes. Okay. I realized from a very young age that like baton is this very obscure, unique sport that unfortunately is dwindling. I don't know how much longer it will survive. And part of it is because it's like not a cool sport. People don't understand what it actually is. They have a very outdated image. Like when I say baton twirling, I'm sure most people will envision some lady in a hat with a feather and big white boots marching in a parade. And maybe that is the roots of what it is. And in some pockets of the US, it still exists like that. But that's not what it is for a majority of other people in the world. It certainly wasn't what it was for me at all. And so I think that there's this outdated idea of what baton is, but every time I've gone into public spaces to practice, even when I was a kid, there would be other people like playing basketball or badminton, and everyone would be like, oh, that is so cool. So that was my indication that like people love the skill, and you see it in martial arts, like in XMA or Wushu and other weapons-based martial arts, where there is that aspect of some flashy movement of a staff or a weapon. It's just hasn't been presented in a way that encourages people and inspires people to want to learn. And that was a big part of moving a staff around for me, even like within my own stunt career, being like, I have this skill. I can use it in this capacity, and it's not going to be in the way you think, because I've had coordinators and other stunt performers tell me to my face as I'm flipping a stick around, oh, but you would never use that in a real fight. You would never use that in on camera. And I'm like, watch me. Just because you don't understand. This goes back to that people not understanding like the path that I'm on. Watch me. It's okay if you don't understand, but then it means that it's my job to show you and create. I basically sort of this thing within the industry is people aren't as creative as they think they are. So you actually have to create the show, create the product, and hand it to them and be like, you need this in your movie. And that's essentially what I've done with the weapons and the staffs. But then in terms of teaching it, it's this like knowing since I was young that people want to learn this. People think it's cool, but it needs to be presented in a more accessible, modern way. And I think that's what the staff really allows it, because the staff is a very neutral weapon. It can be whatever you want. You can make it look combative and more of a martial arts vibe, or you can make it look a little bit more flowy and dancey and fluid. You have that ability to do both with one singular weapon, and then that can translate to whatever tool or prop you want to use after that. But it proves me right when I'm holding classes right now and my classes are full, because people want to learn this. It's just this fun new thing that hasn't been available for anybody to learn in the past. And I'm just trying to take all that gap space and fill it up with cool things for people to learn. And you don't have to want to become a stunt woman like me or want to do it at a professional level. You don't even have to want to master it. It's just a fun thing to do. It's really good for your brain, good for your body. And yeah, so I'm trying to create the market for this very niche skill.
Sure. Are you satisfied with the direction that is going so far in terms of your classes and the exposure and that? How it's progressing? How do you feel about that? So thus far, how do you feel about it? The development.
I feel very satisfied. It's a grind. Good. It really is. I have an online academy, a membership with tutorials and everything. I have about 200 tutorials that I haven't even edited yet. I'm just waiting for the finances to be able to do that.
Sure.
I'm satisfied of what it's become, because when I started teaching it and when I started just putting it out there into the world, I didn't even know what I needed it to be. And it's going to constantly be evolving. But now that I have students that are coming up into an advanced level, I'm starting to see the way people take it on and the way people interpret it and the types of people that are practicing and all of that. And like I said, my classes are always full. So there is the need. It's not the need, but people want to do it. And so my question that I'm constantly asking myself is, how do I present this in a way that is enticing and inspiring and empowering to people? That's the biggest thing. I want it to be accessible. I don't want to gatekeep it away from anybody based on like finances or abilities. So how do I open this up so that people can do it? How do I make it a lifestyle thing and a regular thing that people would do? And I'm constantly walking down that path. It certainly isn't in its final form yet. There's a lot of things I would like to do with it. I also have to, again, because I'm doing a lot of this by myself, I have to be able to balance my career side of things with the business side of things. And that's been one of my biggest challenges. So I go in seasons. There's a season where I'm really focused on my academy and my student base and teaching staff spinning. But then there's times where I'm on set and I'm working and I'm training for a specific thing. And when you're on set, you do not have any capacity to do anything else because you're working 15 hours a day. And so that's a balance that I'm still trying to master. But on a whole, the sort of air of it, people kind of see what it's about. I think that it really speaks to people who are creative. It really speaks to people that have that inner child that wanted to be a Jedi or a ninja or a superhero. It really speaks to that. And I think that that is really, really powerful, especially for people around my age. And my demographic is adults. Like it's adults taking my class. It's partially because I also don't offer kids classes anymore, but but like the majority of my audience online, when I look at my analytics, are 25 to 44 is adults. And I think that it's a really powerful tool. Yes. And I'm going to continue to be tweaking it and finding the language and the spark in it that really like catches people. And I think that's just going to be an ongoing process. But I am fairly satisfied with like what it's become. I think people get the vibe of it, even if they don't want to try it, which is cool. But I think they get the vibe. You get a couple trolls out there every now and then.
Always.
I like poking at those people and being like, "Aw, you're just jealous."
Michelle, the fact that you've made yourself a resource to educate and help people and to learn and develop their skill with that, I mean, it says a lot about your love for it, and it says a lot about your heart and your desire to help people. I was going to ask you what made you want to extend yourself in that way, but I feel like you kind of touched on it a little bit in terms of in terms of how you want to kind of keep it going, you know, and allow people the opportunity to be able to express themselves in that way, and then seeing the impact that it's having, you know. And it's interesting that the demographic you gave, you were saying that you have lots of people in that demographic because it also defies the stereotype of people getting older not wanting to do stuff. You know what I mean? It's not always wanting to learn a new thing or something particularly physical. Is not limited to that of children or teenagers. You know, you got adults, like you said, that want to do it too. So that's really good that you're putting that out there, extending yourself and giving people that opportunity to express themselves creatively. So a thumbs up and a kudos to you for that, for sure.
Thank you.
Sure. You're welcome. You're welcome. You touched on gymnastics. You said you had training in gymnastics. Certain things and watching how you move, I suspected dance. I had to ask it. Of course, with the gymnastic, you know, the way I suspected that as well. Talk to me about that in terms of how much exposure that you have with the gymnastics aspect.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that gymnastics is my strong suit. Basically, we started going to gymnastics classes. We called them acro back in the day because in baton, you have the ability to huck your baton up in the air, do a couple flips, catch your baton. That is part of it. And so we were learning skills to be done under our batons on a hard floor. So that minimizes a lot of the power tumbling that we had the ability to do. But yeah, we were going since about 7 until I've continued up until the last couple of years. I continued going to drop in gymnastics and learning how to flip. Though I will say that if I had chosen gymnastics as my sport, I wouldn't have been very good at it. I'm too tall for it. I'm
How tall are you?
5'8", and a lot of times gymnasts who are my height don't get very far just because it's a lot of body to flip around. But it was something I enjoyed doing, even though I wouldn't say it wasn't my strong suit. I don't like going backwards for tumbling. Had that block since I was a kid. I could do it, but I didn't do that. And then nowadays I have my like back pocket skills that I can just sort of do. And that's about it. I'm not trying to maintain any skills, because the thing about gymnastics is there's a lot of strength and mobility involved, and there's skills that you have to practice and maintain. And they're different from general movement and like with my stick stuff and like moving around that I'm doing, like I'm maintaining my dance ability by doing martial arts. It's different, but I'm maintaining that. But the whole acrobatics sequences that you have to like physically go to a gym with mats and practice things. And I've just found that I reached a certain age where it just started not feeling good anymore. And now I'm like, I don't need to do that. If you need to call somebody to do a backflip, call a 20-year-old. You don't need to call me. I don't want to do it. But like, I got a few skills that I can just pull out of nowhere. And I'm very satisfied with that. But there are a few skills that like in my brain, I was like, oh, that would look wicked with a staff. And I just got old. And I could still like go to the gym and pull some things out, but the next day and the following week, I would not. And that, I think that's maturity and experience of knowing, like, I could still do it. Like maybe my ego needs a little bit of a boost. It doesn't anymore. But like in the past, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to go make sure that I can whip out these skills. But now I'm like, nah, it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
That's what, like you said, wisdom for sure. Listen to your body. Do you now, in terms of the physical, of course, with martial arts, with the gymnastics, with the baton, with the staff, with the eskrima, all of that is physical. But do you do gym training in addition to that as well?
Yes. Yeah, I have a trainer that I work with. Nice. Actually, in the last couple of years, I've scaled back my training a lot. Like I went from training 4 to 6 hours a day, like 5 to 6 days a week for almost my entire life. And then, I burnt out. Got tired.
That's a lot,
and
Michelle.
So it actually, when the lockdowns came, I sat on the couch for a month and a half, and that's the longest that I had not moved in my entire life. And my body was like, oh, thank you. Oh, and I felt like I was catching my breath. And after that, I was like, I think there's something to this. And a lot of my burnout has come from nervous system dysregulation. So my body's been at like heightened awareness, fight or flight for so long that it's just exhausted, and I'm trying to actively like bring it down. Because it's like when you're competing at a really high level, that's a lot of and then like I go into set and I'm on a wire and they're about to say 3, 2, 1 action and I'm going through a wall. Like my body, my intellect understands that I'm not going to die, but my body doesn't understand. But then not having a practice in those moments to actively like bring yourself down back into a rest and digest state, into a space where your body feels safe. I never had that practice before then. And so the last couple of years, I've scaled back my training a lot because I just physically couldn't do anymore. It was a really strange experience. But in that time, what I have maintained for that whole time was going to the gym a couple times a week and working with my trainer and just doing that. And it's only been in the last probably like 8 to 9 months that I've allowed myself to add more things to that. Like I was very aware of not getting my heart rate over a certain height, very aware of any sort of adrenal dump that I might get, because that was just actively putting myself back into that survival state. And so it's been a process, but there have been days where I cannot physically move, where I'm on the couch or in bed, where I'm like, I can't move. I can't even look at my phone, can't even open my computer. And that is my nervous system being like, I'm fried. Right. So so the fact that I'm only training like such a minimal amount every week now, this is the least active I've ever been in my life. And just in the last, like I said, 8 months, I've been adding new things, but I've been adding things that are new to me. Like I was doing a track class an acceleration sprinting class. It's not as challenging on my body as I thought it would be, but it's something new. It's something I've never done before. And as the only one in the class that's a professional athlete, I'm the slowest one. I'm like, all these people that are like former athletes in some capacity, they can run faster than me, and I'm like running as fast as I can, and they're passing me. And it's like, it's wild. But yeah, just trying new things. I think that goes into finding the joy and being able to separate myself, because so much of my training was involved with work. It's like, I got to get better, not good enough. And when I sort of take that away, I'm like, yeah, I could go to that martial arts class. I could. And there are times that I do go because I want to go, but not because I'm trying to be someone or do something, or like that obsessive need to get better. But
just want to enjoy it.
Enjoy training. I enjoy working with my trainer, being at the gym, but like we're just getting into a space where I'm starting to lift a bit heavier because I like strength and conditioning. I love those exercises, but for like 2 years, we were just doing stability and like focusing on like creating like safety in my body, and it did wonders.
I'm sure. So you went from spending 5-6 hours a day training. How many times a week do you train between everything that you do? How many days a week, and for how long? Is there like maybe 5 and 2 days off, or what's your setup
now? I do maybe 2 days in a row, 2 days off a day, 2 days off. So I'm doing between 2 to 4 days a week of training, and it's very short, like at the most 2 hours.
Okay.
And yeah, and like there are times where I know that I'm gonna have to go to set, and I'm gonna have to like push through my current capacity, but I'm okay with that. Like it's better for me to slow down so that later on I'll have more of a capacity to take on more, because I can always train myself for endurance later on, but I want to do it consciously and not because I'm trying to be something. And doing it because it feels good. I think there's a big difference. And it's really challenging when it's your job to be training. It is part of my job of being a professional stunt performer, is I should constantly be training. But if that training is just putting me at a disadvantage and putting me closer to injury and burnout, then that's not what I need to be doing for my job. Right. So yeah, it feels like a relief to be like 2 to 4 days a week. Oh, it's nice. It's really nice.
I mean, Michelle, I gotta tell you, and it's interesting because I knew of you and was familiar with what you've done prior to, and I don't know you personally, but I'm really glad. I'm really glad to hear. I'm happy to hear that you're taking care of yourself. Something about that. You're welcome. That's good, man. It's encouraging, and it's good for you. It's good for longevity. So yeah, I'm really glad to hear that, because people can have their opinions about things, but until you in a person's shoes and know what they have to go through, it's like it's better to ask a question than to assume. You know what I mean? So, I
agree. And we're hearing so much these last couple of years about people being burnt out, and and that constant grind of just trying to survive in the societies that we've built for ourselves it's like there's like what is a life if you're at the end of your rope and you're fried? Like that's not a quality of life. And
you're right.
It's challenging. These last 3 years since the lockdown have been the most challenging in my life, and I'm sure for many other people. And
of course.
And it's really forced me to be like, okay, like if you keep going down that path and keep operating the way that you've always operated, you're not going to get very much farther. Like you've already put your body at its max capacity. And like, is that the life? Is that like, I was in chronic pain before I stopped moving. And I didn't even realize how much pain I was in until I stopped moving for a little bit and took everything down. And I was just like, oh my God, chronic pain all the time from like all these old injuries and overuse and all of this. And and I think a lot of people can relate to that, in maybe not necessarily a physical aspect, but just mentally, emotionally, spiritually, just being burnt out. And the only solution is to pause and to rest. And we're not encouraged to rest, because even when people are resting, they're on their phones. I do the same thing, where like, oh, I'm going to take a job, so I'm going to go on TikTok and scroll for hours. But that's the screens, the constant drama of like all the different rabbit holes you can go down TikTok. That's not resting. That's not it.
100%. You're right about that. You're right about that. Within the entertainment industry, do you have people that have impacted your development that you admire, respect, that kind of thing? Maybe top 3.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I'm really inspired by people who have the tenacity and courage to create their vision into reality and pursue it to its fullest. The person I always talk about is Dan Levy, who created Schitt's Creek. He's Canadian. That was a Canadian show. I remember seeing it on the production lists. I never worked on it. I wish I could, because it's one of my favorite shows. But to be able to take something like that, an idea, create it into reality, and in his case, he had never directed, produced, or show run, or even acted in a show like that before. And it started small, but they kept going and they kept creating this good show. And then suddenly it has this massive success. And so I think it's a really good example of like pursuing your ideas to their full completion. And I really, really admire that, because it's really scary sometimes, especially in the entertainment industry, to put a lot of effort into something and it's art in general. Putting art into the world is very vulnerable and scary, because you run the risk of people offering you their unsolicited opinions about it. And I noticed that in my own social media. So I really admire people who are able to take that idea, have the balls to put it out there, and then pursue it to its full completion. I think that is what I aspire to do with my own stuff. And it's something that I'm constantly thinking about, rather than just following the path, that traditional path of like, oh, this is how you're supposed to do that. Because anytime that I follow that path, I become invisible. And I have to, and that doesn't satisfy me. For some people that works, and that's fine. But for me, that's not, it doesn't feel good for me. And so just constantly reminding myself is like, the hard choice might be the uncomfortable choice to put something out there and to ask or to try new things. That is my path. And so I just have to constantly remind myself. Issa Rae is another one who created her own thing that I just really admire. And I'm sure there's more, but I can't think of anything. But it's the people that have the tenacity and the determination to create something and make it happen. Because it's tough. It's tough to make things happen, especially when you have to get multiple people involved. And then you have to enroll people in what you're doing and bring them on and guide them through your vision. And that's a really challenging thing to do. And so I admire when people are able to do that.
For sure. Give me 3 people that have impacted you that are outside of the entertainment industry, that have in your personal life and living, that have impacted you.
My baton coach, Loren Dermody, had a huge impact on me. I spent a lot of time with her. That's probably why. She's impacted me in a creative sense. She's probably one of the most creative people that I've ever met. Her choreography she's still teaching, but like when we were young, my teammates and I, like our choreography was top of the line, and it all came from her ideas, and she tried new things while we were competing, and I always really appreciated that. And so I often think of her creatively. And who else? Oh my God, now I'm like, can't think of anybody in my life.
If you can, it's okay, but I had to ask it,
Yeah. Oh gosh. Now I'm like, I've never met a single human in my entire life. Oh God.
Now listen, if you want to, you can kind of postmark, like mark it in the back of your mind and subconsciously think about it, and I'll ask you something else.
I'm just like running through my life, doing a life review of like, what happened? What am I doing?
When you've done as much as you have and had as many influences, I can understand where it would be, a lot going on.
Oh, I know one. My very first Muay Thai coach, Ray Del Rosario, he taught me a lot about being a really good teacher. And I've been teaching since I was 15. I can't say I've always been a good teacher. I couldn't understand when I was younger why people would pursue something and not want to be the best at it, because that was my experience of it. But being in his classes really taught me a lot about fostering a positive and encouraging environment. And Muay Thai classes are no joke. They're rough.
Sure. Yeah.
They're hard.
Sure.
But
yeah.
Never in his classes is he condescending or putting you down. He's pushing you from a space of like, I know you got this. And whenever I take any sort of class, a yoga class, a Pilates class, like whatever, I'm always very aware that I'm a student and I'm aware of the teacher, and I'm always sort of watching and listening for little ways that they teach, whether I think it's positive or negative, being like, oh, and in his class, I was constantly being like, oh, I really like the way that he engages with his students. And how can I be more of what he's creating? How can I add that into my classes? And I think he's had a really positive and meaningful impact in the way that I teach classes, because I was like, oh, you don't have to be a hard ass, because that's sort of like an environment that I had grown up in, and there's a lot of negative reinforcement. And I'm like, no, it doesn't make me feel good. I'm actually very triggered by it. But here's an environment where you're doing class that's very challenging, but I feel good after. I feel like I've done something, and I've been encouraged through that. All right, there'll be another one. There'll be one more.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, in terms of from the television side of things, what would you say were the 3 things you had the most fun working on?
Ooh, I worked on a show called Titans, DC's Titans.
Yeah.
A couple years ago.
Yeah.
I didn't even appear on camera. I was brought in to teach an actor some weapons movement. Nice. It was supposed to be a 2-week gig. I ended up staying there for 6. This is out in Toronto.
Wow.
And a lot of what people don't see about working in stunts is the rehearsals and any scene that has action involved. We film shot by shot according to the script, as if we're shooting the show, and it's called a previs, and we send that to producers and directors to get that action scene approved. So while I was there, I was helping film all these previses, and one just happened to be a carnival scene, and we just decked out the whole rehearsal space as like a carnival, and just felt so welcomed by this team that like I was coming in at the end of the season, and people just welcomed me in with open arms, and I had one of the most positive experiences of my life. The coordinator was Larnell Stovall, and he did what's that called? Altered Carbon, one of the earlier seasons. He was a coordinator on that show, and then he took on Titans, and that was one of my most positive experiences. Nice. And it was right when my burnout was really starting in later in 2019, so I was really happy to not have to go to set, and all I was doing was just teaching this actor and helping with previs, and like I just had the best time.
Nice. Yeah,
there's been other shows. I worked on C on the first season a lot, and it was a challenging experience with certain personalities and just the elements, because we're working in like outside. But what we did get out of it is they took us to locations that I'm sure humans have not been into in thousands of years, like just these remote locations that we're working in, and the weather was beautiful, and just it was a really interesting experience. And I was on screen, like you could probably see me a lot, but I'm wearing like face is covered the whole time. But just being out there, like establishing stunt performers in the show. There's about 5 of us. We got like nice hotel rooms and get to hang out with cast, and just being a part of the experience and a valued part of the experience was really nice. And then going out to these like beautiful locations, like in the mountains or on the island and stuff. It was gorgeous. And then there's been like Deadpool was actually one of my most positive experiences. That was back in 2015 that we filmed that.
Sure.
And that was one of the first times that I really felt like part of the team. Because before that, I don't know if maybe it's just me and my trauma, but like I had felt like I was not included in a lot of the things that were happening. I was there, but I wasn't like one of the cool kids. And Deadpool was one of the first times that I felt like I was a valued part of the team. That's a big thing for me, is feeling valued.
Sure.
Just, I think it comes from having invested so much of my life into my career, and to feel like I'm being cast aside, it doesn't feel good. And a lot of what the film industry is that sort of, if you're not one of the cool kids, then like, get out of here.
Like growing up high school. Okay.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And I was not interested in being involved in the drama and all that of high school either.
Sure.
I'm very averse to that kind of stuff. But yeah, Deadpool was one of those first experiences that I was like, I was a lead double on a feature film, and I was doing a good job. And I felt like one of the cool kids, and people were noticing, and people were telling me of like, hey, we're noticing that you're doing a good job. I saw the way that you interacted with your actor. You're doing really great. And like, it's nice to see. And I was like, okay, that's some affirmations. Thank you. Like, something right.
Absolutely. You said something a little earlier that I thought was interesting in terms of you hadn't always felt valued. Is that something that you still struggle with?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it honestly comes from myself. Like, if I don't believe that I'm worthy and deserving, how are other people going to understand that? Because you kind of put out a vibe, and it might be really subconscious. And so I've been really like working on my own self-worth. But I do feel, I think it's a product of having done my job since I was 5 years old.
Sure.
And knowing what I'm capable of, and feeling like I'm being overlooked and that I'm invisible. I've felt that my entire career, really my entire life, actually, even my competitive career, I felt the same way.
Sure.
Interesting. And I've had like comments of like, I started working with a coordinator just a couple of years ago on a show called Motherland. And I had been in stunts for 10 years at that point. And he's like, why didn't I know who you were? Like, where have you been? I was like, I've been around for 10 years. He's like, I didn't know. I was like, I've been here. I've been like trying all the things and doing all the things. And I don't know what that is. Even now, I feel it even now. I go and do auditions, and I'm a great actor, but I don't book. And people are like, why aren't you acting? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I put in a good tape. I just had one the other day where I put in a good tape, and they're like, oh, we really liked you, but we're going to go with this other actor. That is like what I have heard my entire career. And it's like, I don't know what else, like, and this was a big part of my burnout too, is like, I have given everything. And now I have nothing left to give. So what am I supposed to do now? And that's what really like motivates me. And I'm like, I'm just going to go do my own thing. I'm going to go this way. If you want to be a part of it, you're welcome to join. But sitting around and waiting for the film industry to notice me, I'm done playing that game. And that takes a lot of courage. And I know it's not the like tried and true, what's the word? Like, it's not the encouraged way to do things, but I've played the game. And people are like, why aren't you? I had somebody just ask me the other day, because I sent them my acting like demo reel, and they're like, why aren't you booking bigger things? I'm like, I don't know. That is so out of my control. All I can do is be good at my job. And hope that somebody wants to work with me. That's a mystery that I have not figured out. But my love language is words of affirmation. So I need people to tell me that I'm doing a good job.
Words of affirmation, is that your primary or second?
That's my primary.
What's your second?
Quality time.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. I mean, well, you know, I have to say it. You're very much valued and very much appreciated.
Thank you.
I value you're welcome, your contributions, and I think you're awesome. You know, and I know I'm not alone. I happen to have a podcast, so I can say it. But I know that what I feel and what I see, there are so many others, including the participants in your classes, that feel the same. So I mean, my encouragement to you, you're welcome. Keep shining. Keep shining.
Yeah, I think you just keep going and waiting for external sources to validate you. It's never going to happen. That was a big thing about my career that really that this was in this like burnout phase that I've been in the last couple of years, is like, I have been searching for validation from external sources my entire career, knowing even now, like knowing that I'm never going to get that. Nobody's going to like email me and be like, "Dear Michelle, I'm a producer. You are good enough. You are now ready to work on this show." Like, I'm not going to get that. And it's like, if subconsciously that's what I'm asking for. So what I realize is it has to come from me. It has to come from my own sense of love and self-worth and self-trust. That's a big one, is being able to trust yourself in these situations and being like, I know I could handle that gig. And I know that I would do a good job. And I think that sense of empowerment is what I'm trying to teach in my classes, is because it's not about the staff spinning. It's about the empowerment you receive from trying a new thing and succeeding at it, or just like pushing through and finding that tenacity and determination to do something new. That is what creates that sense of worth and empowerment. And so I always see the parallel of what I'm going through in my life in my classes. Where I'm like, I'm searching for my own self-empowerment. I know I'm a powerful person, and I want to fully believe that about myself. And I also want you to feel powerful. And I want, if I can give that to you in this very indirect way that's also fun and good for you, then that to me is the most fulfilling thing that I could ask for. That's to share that with other people.
Sure, that's a beautiful thing. And it's oftentimes when people experience, be it trauma or uncomfortable circumstances, unfortunately, the natural tendency is to perpetuate what it is that you've experienced or what you felt. But when you can take that disappointment that you may have felt, or the rejection you may have felt, and turn it around and use it to encourage other people and lift other people up the way that you do in your classes, that's good. That's a beautiful thing. And it's not the norm, you know. So it's I love the fact that you do that. Do you have like a wish list of people that you would like to work with that you haven't worked with already?
Oh yeah, I'm more of like projects that I think that I want to work with. Of course I want to work on Star Wars, some sort of Star Wars franchise.
Yes.
I'm in the process of I'm working on a project, a secret project, where we're going to put something out to the world, and we're going to be like, we're going to pitch it to the executives and people. We're going to find a way to get it out there. We're going to use my social media to my advantage. I'd love to work on another Marvel show, because I did Deadpool. I think where I would really like to, like in a wish list, I want to play the villain as the actor that can do my own action. Rather than being the stunt double for an actor, because physically I'm not going to put myself in the space. Like even now with stunts, like I'm not doing big crazy stunts anymore. That's not good for my body. The most loving thing I could do for myself is to not smash my body into the ground anymore. But I can do my own action. And then maybe there's I would just love, I have this idea of like me being the actor. I can do most of my action, but I have a stunt double. And maybe it's somebody that's just coming up in the industry, and I'm able to mentor them a little bit and allow them to have these like gnarly gags. But like, for the most part, I'm going to do my stuff. I think that's not something you ever see in a actor stunt double relationship. So I would really love that challenge of like me being the actor. And that's just it's like the one thing I've never done in the film industry. I've had little acting gigs here and there, but I've never like had the responsibility to play a character like that in like a feature or like a series. So I think that would be like, that is the one thing that I'm sort of missing in my career. Aside from that, I'm like fairly satisfied, but I'm really interested these days in like, what's something I've never done before that I can do with the skills that I have. And I don't quite know what that is yet. It's like, and that's a fun thing. And so I feel like right now I'm just sort of trying all these things. I'm in this transition space of like, okay, well, can't go full stunts anymore, but I can do some stuff. Right. Haven't done that before, haven't done that. And maybe there's something that I'm not even thinking about that like couldn't even fathom until it shows up in front of me. And like, how do I use all of the impact and platforms that I've created? How do I use that to my advantage to create something meaningful in the world? And impactful and powerful. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at. Like, I want to work on the big shows, but also I'm open to being surprised. I'm just going with the flow these days.
Well, the cool thing about what you just said and what you said earlier is you're slowing down, you're taking more time to be still and to relax your mind and your body. And it's easier for things to come to you when you're sitting still, relaxing, as opposed to being on the go like you were prior to. So yes. I would suspect that what it is that you're looking for and seeking after is going to come to you a lot sooner than what you may realize, because of the fact that you're taking more time for self-care and to just chill out for a bit, as opposed to, when you're on the go, ain't nothing happening but what's on the go when you're on the go. So that's really
totally cool. And I'm in a really interesting phase of my life. And I think it's an age thing, because I'm turning 39 in a month. Okay. And I'm not saying that I'm old, but I feel older than I am just because I've used my body so much. But what I'm really like, it's just sort of popping up is like, oh, what if I could like be producing or doing something where I'm involved in creating something, because there has to be an element of creativity for me, but where the physical performance, I don't have that weight and pressure on myself. Sure. To have to sort of push through that discomfort of, because being a stunt performer is very uncomfortable, whether that's pain or temperature or costumes. It's part of the job, and being in a physical role, like you're constantly, like you said, you're constantly in movement, and that's challenging for your body. But there's something about like being on the other side of that and being a part of creating something that I can help guide and lead people through, that is like still in the same vein, but not necessarily the camera's on me with all that pressure. And like the performance things, like the acting things, if those never come, I'm satisfied. Like I've done stuff that I never thought I would ever do.
Quite a bit.
Yeah. However, I kind of feel like, because I'm slowing down and I'm enjoying slowing down, that this sort of like skills are getting farther and farther away. And like, yeah, I can just like pop back in, but there is an element of like, ooh, like I am sort of ready to let a lot of physical skills go so that I can discover something else that really lights me up. And I'm like, I just got a little bit of juice left in the tank for maybe some cool gigs in the next couple of years. But then I'm like really excited to like transform and move on. And this is the first time in my life, because before when I've thought about that, that's scary. But now I'm like, I'm looking forward to it.
Sure.
Okay. Like I'm always going to be active, but like maybe I'm going to go play volleyball as my activity or something. Like
Say open to whatever may come. I understand. Sure. What's some advice, Michelle, that you would give to someone, some advice or encouragement that you would share with someone that's facing a tough time?
I think I would say that find some compassion for yourself. I think what happens in our society, I don't know if it's capitalism or the patriarchy or whatever, is we feel like we're messing up, and there's a lot of shame around going through a time of struggle. But being in the struggle is part of the human experience, and it also creates the contrast for the really good times. And this moment of struggle is not permanent. And it's difficult. And so if you can let yourself off the hook and just find some compassion and kindness for yourself and just allow yourself to be in the mucky space and just really be with it. Because a lot of what I've learned about processing emotions and darker emotions is the best way through them is to process them, is to sit with them. Because the more you try to avoid the gross feelings with distracting yourself or trying to escape it, the longer they're going to stick around, and they might disappear for a bit, but then they're going to come back. So if you can find it in you, and this is one of the hardest things to do as a human, but to find the space to sit down and be super present and just ask your body. I often will say when I'm feeling like anxious, because I have a lot of anxiety, is like I'll sit with myself and say, what am I feeling and where am I feeling it? And then just listen to my body. And it'll sort of direct me to like wherever I'm holding tension and energy. And then I just sit with it. I'll just say, I'm okay, I'm just going to breathe and just thank you for being here. I'm not going to judge it. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm angry and that's wrong for me to be angry. And this is all really challenging to do, but just sitting in it, because it will pass if you sit in it. Like, I think I read somewhere that you only hold your emotions for like 2 minutes and then they're gone. Not saying that like when I've had like really dark anxiety, it sticks for a while, but sitting in it is the only way to get through it. And easier said than done. But I think a lot of what happens in those spaces is we create a lot of shame and story around what we're feeling, and we shouldn't be feeling it, but it's actually totally okay to feel it. So let yourself off the hook, feel your shit, and move on from there. And it's a process. It's not going to happen like this. It's months, even years of just allowing yourself the space.
We're putting forth the effort. Now, this could have been when you were 12, 5, 7, 19, 20, whatever. What's encouragement or advice you wish someone had shared with you at that particular time, tough time you may have been facing at any age? What's some advice that you wish someone had shared with you?
I wish somebody would have told me while I was a child competing at the World Championships to celebrate the victory of making it to the World Championships. So it's like celebrate those small little wins. I think because I was one of the top people in my sport, if I wasn't getting first or second, I was failing. And I remember the first year I went to Worlds, I was 11, 12, and I was in Italy. My parents didn't come. It was just me and my coach and my teammates. And it was the biggest competition I'd ever been in. And I didn't do my best. And I wish somebody would have just pulled me aside after I got off the floor when it was all sad. If somebody had been like, you made it to Worlds as an 11-year-old. Congratulations.
Absolutely.
That is the victory. Who cares what you did here? It's your first competition. It was a weird gym. Like, of course you're going to be like all over the place. But I think I came off feeling like a disappointment and that I had failed. When really the victory was that I had got there in the first place, and the fact that I wasn't there with my parents and like was able to like even put myself on the floor and put my makeup on and do my hair. I think that is a victory, and that's something that I even struggle with to this day. Like I don't see the success, because for me I'm like not there yet, not good enough. But like zooming out and like looking at my resume and being like, oh, I guess I've done stuff, but it feels like I haven't. So I think there's something about celebrating the small victories. And
definitely a lot of little monster big.
It's a habit. It really is. I think it's like a constantly like a daily habit. Of like, oh, I got out of bed today. Yeah, good work. Like I drank a liter of water before I had my coffee. Nice one. You did it. I emptied my dishwasher. Good work. No,
you're right about that for sure. Well, it is definitely my prayer that you'll start to see yourself the way that the people that love and support you see you, in terms of the optimistic, you're welcome, and the value, the overabundance of value and talent and shine that you bring to anything that you're a part of, So But Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time to have a conversation with me. I truly appreciate it. I have definitely learned and have enjoyed your company and your conversation. I'm looking forward to seeing what it is that you figure out in terms of what comes to you, where you want to take your career, and either ride it out or do it until you figure out something else that you want to do. So, but I'm going to enjoy observing and supporting for sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This was fun. It was very nice to chat with you.
Definitely. Thank you again so much. I appreciate you, and I will definitely continue to support you and see what else is coming.
Yeah, it's an adventure.
So, it really is.
Go with the flow.
It really is. So if you could just continue to shine and enjoy the rest of your day and continue to take care of yourself, I would appreciate that.
Will do. Will do.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate you, Michelle. Take care, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.